nothing more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules. Well, if we're just nothing more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules, then so is your conclusions in your book, Mr. Crick. Bravo for co-discovering a DNA molecule. You're still a fool. And the reason you're a fool is because your worldview cannot afford terminology like morality, science, logic, reason, math, journalism, editing, none of it. Those are all immaterial realities that require an objective, living, breathing God. There's a couple other quotes here I'll read to you as I see them. More generally, as I shall repeat in chapter 8, one of the truly bad effects of religion is that it teaches us that it is a virtue to be satisfied without understanding. With not understanding. Let me read that again because I really want to get this. More generally, as I shall repeat in chapter 8, one of the truly bad effects of religion is that it teaches us that it is a virtue to be satisfied with not understanding. Well, I'm not sure what he's getting at there, but if he's saying that we have a lack of understanding or we go into faith blindly, that's definitely not what faith is. And that kind of brings me to my next point is, ladies and gentlemen, and I will give Mr. Dawkins some credit here, I'm not entirely sure what he meant by that. I can tell you that Mr. Dawkins is among with many other atheists, and I could certainly quote them. They assume that when you believe in God, you're creating a gods of the gaps. And let me explain what gods of the gaps is so that you folks know how to protect yourselves from this. When somebody thinks that you're creating God of the gaps, they believe that scientifically we can't explain life, therefore God. So we arbitrarily insert God in places that we don't. No. That's far from the truth. In fact, you need God to do science. We covered that last week. You can go onto our podcast, go to the CC Radio Network, and check that out. But God absolutely is needed. Science needs God. You can't even do a science experiment without God. So, number one, if we don't know which God exists, then I guess that statement would be true. We would just fit God wherever our opinions mattered. But I am going to share with you in these next podcasts how you can know God exists for sure and which God it is. And that brings me to my open forum question tonight. And those that want to call in, please call in. By the way, the number is 646-595-3275. That's 646-595-3275. Call in tonight because what we're talking about is, what is your belief in God? Is there one true living God that we all should fall down and worship? Or do all roads lead to God? Well, Richard Dawkins, and as many other atheists, have a problem with every religion, particularly Christianity. It seems to be the only one that they target. I love them to try to target Islam. You don't see them doing that a lot. But for Christians who they want to talk to, they just blast away at Christians. It's very fascinating that Mr. Dawkins, somebody told a story one time, and I'll tell this story too because I think it's very fascinating. Jeff Durbin, a very well-known apologist, he's growing anyway. I think he's still kind of getting known out there, but he's very, very good. If you could check him out on YouTube, Jeff Durbin. He, in one of his talks online, he gives this great little story. It was a made-up story, by the way, so this is, just for the record, this is not a real story about Richard Dawkins, but I think it pulls in a good point. And here's what I heard him say, and I think this is a good story. Supposing Richard Dawkins wrote a book, And the next book on his list is a masterpiece. Richard Dawkins feels it's got a real gut instinct on this. And the gut instinct is, or excuse me, his book is, I hate God and you can too. Let's just make it up. And as he writes his book and gives it to his publisher, they say, Mr. Dawkins, we'll take care of your book for you and try to get it on as many shelves as possible. Well, weeks go by, and Richard Dawkins' phone is ringing off the hook. I mean, he just can't stop it from ringing. Day in, day night, day in, day out. And he picks up the phone, and every time it's some reporter, it's some fan saying, this is the best book you ever written. CNN wants him, ABC, NBC, Fox News, everybody wants this guy. It's the best book ever written, Richard Dawkins' masterpiece. But he still hasn't heard from his publisher. So he decides to call one day, and he picks up the phone, and it went a little something like this. Hello, this is Mr. Dawkins. I want to know how my book is doing. Oh, Mr. Dawkins, I'm glad you called. Your book is doing so fantastic. Really? Oh, yes, Mr. Dawkins. It's going so popular, we can't even keep it in production. Well, that's fantastic. Yes, Mr. Dawkins, you sure wrote a good one. It's making a lot of money, by the way. Well, fantastic. Well, where's my money? What do you mean, Mr. Dawkins? Well, you guys owe me money. You're supposed to sell my stuff. I'm supposed to get a cut of it. Oh, no, Mr. Dawkins. You see, we believed you. There are no goods and evils. There are no cruels and kinds. We're nothing but blind, pitiless indifference in this subject, and we're going to keep your money. Goodbye, Mr. Dawkins. Well, as Mr. Dawkins hangs up the phone, he immediately dials his number with his lightning fast hands and his burning red-hot head because he's so mad, and he calls who? Who is he going to call? He's going to call a lawyer, and that lawyer is going to sue the pants out of that publisher. Now, why would Richard Dawkins do that? Because, get this, brainwashed out there, if you're brainwashed, you need to hear this from Richard Dawkins. He believes in good and evil. He believes in it. Despite what he writes in his books, he believes in rights and wrongs, goods and evils. Now, I don't know what kind of package he puts in there, but he believes it. There's no question about it. Hey, if you want to talk to me, the number is 646-595-3275, 646-595-3275. And what we're talking about tonight, oh, and by the way, I really should mention Mark and Felix, or you guys might know them as the Rev and Dr. Mark. The Rev, I call them the Rez. I'm going to call them the Rez. The Rev and Dr. Mark, they are conservative, liberal news. They dabble a little bit in religion. I do not hold their view at all. In fact, the way we met was I kept going on their show telling them they're wrong. But we became very good friends, and they're dear friends of mine. They've helped me out a great deal. In fact, you can check them out Monday nights and Friday nights. They got two different shows. One is religious, and one is politics and sports and things like that. They kind of talk about whatever. Now with the debates going on, the political debates, I'm sure that they're going to be talking a lot about that. And their buddy there, Donald Trump. That one was for you, Mark. I'm just kidding with you, buddy. No, Dr. Mark is not a fan of Donald Trump, but they are very good friends. They're very entertaining to listen to, so check them out if you want to. Just know that I don't hold the same religious belief. My faith comes solid through the Bible, undiluted. I don't make any apologies for it. I believe the Bible is infallible and historically accurate, and I believe it tells us all about life, about God, and about man. And the only answers that you're going to get for the meaning of life are found right in the pages of the Bible. If you want to debate me on that, I'd be happy to talk to you. 646-595-3275. This is Chad with $1,000,000% Radio on the CC Radio Network. We'll be right back.
What makes the product of your faith true? This is $1,000,000% Radio.
Okay, so we're back. Now, if anybody wants to call, here's my question to you. What is your belief? Are you spiritual? Are you a spiritual person? And I should clarify something here, and this is probably going to make a lot of people mad who call themselves Christians. I don't believe for a minute that every single person who calls themselves a Christian is a Christian. In fact, I'm going to read a couple things here in a minute that might shock some of you, because it sure shocked me when I read it, although I do know where I stand. I've taken the tests found in 1 John. You can take tests to find out if you're in the faith. If you ever want to talk to me, again, just click on the link in the description box. You'll see my 1,000,000% clips. And Facebook, you could check me out. I wrote some descriptions in there and some good, helpful information. And I try to update it, although I'm not always best at it. But the more people that connect me on there, I will be updating it more. Now, what I want to do is go to Matthew's Gospel, and I want to share something with you. Since we're talking about God, who's the right God, who's the wrong God? Do all roads lead to God? Okay. In chapter 7, it gets very, very interesting. Because what Jesus does, starting in verse 12, is he makes this incredibly difficult for us to be saved, really. And that's because in Luke 9:23, it says, if you want to come after me, if you want to be my disciple, you got to first deny yourself, which is hard enough to do. It takes total surrendership. He says you got to take up your cross. Everybody knows what a cross is. It's a torture device. And follow me. And there's your obedience. So cross-bearing, self-denial, and obedience is a three-dimensional Christian, ladies and gentlemen. Sadly, as we live in America and we go through our quote-unquote Christianity, there is a lot of false Christians out there. And here's the proof right here. Jesus tells us himself. Verse 12, so whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for there is a law, and for this is the law and the prophets. And then here in verse 13, he gives a very interesting analogy. He says, enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide, and the way is easy that leads to destruction. All those who enter in it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. So let's break this down here in Matthew 7, starting in verse 13. He's saying, enter by the narrow gate. You got to go through the narrow gate. You can't go through the wide gate. Why? Because the wide gate is easy path. I want you to underline that. In some versions it might not say easy, but this is the ESV version. The wide gate leads to destruction. Many people think they're okay. They think they're going to heaven, but they are not going to heaven. They're going to go through the wide gate. Now, how many people can go through the wide gate? Many, many, many people. Now, look what happens here. Then he says, easy is this road, and the way is easy. Ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing hard about going what the world's direction is. You want to be Baha'i? Man, the Baha'i faith has it pretty easy. You know, a lot of these religions are Eastern religions that are atheistic in nature. For instance, Buddhism and Hinduism. They're atheistic, one with nature, one with yourself. You are the enlightenment. You can reach and obtain that with your own merits. All you got to do is do. Not give, but do, and you'll be okay. Maybe you'll be reincarnated into a giraffe as opposed to an ant or something. I don't know. But what those religions teach is that you have the capability to earn that favor with God. That is far from the truth. Because here's how Jesus concludes this little talk before he gets to the tree and its fruit. He says,